What is up, YouTube and all my fish keeping friends? How's everybody doing out there in fish tank land? This is Joseph Hardin from JH Aquatics, and today I have a special guest on this awesome Sunday live stream. I was just rushing a little bit to get all set up, trying to film and use all my lights and cameras to film and then also to stream and all that good stuff. So I am here. It was awesome to see Daryl Dimmer was first in the chat. I have Big City Betas. Oh, Oddball Aquatics is in the chat as well. Valley Fish. We got Mark over there at Placo Whisperer. Science Gal Aquatics. Raccoon Creeks. What is up, guys? I hope you guys are having an awesome Sunday afternoon. It's afternoon for me anyways. Maybe not over on the West Coast. But got my coffee still, though. I'm being lazy this Sunday. It looks like the notification went out because I'm seeing it on one of my computers. So YouTube is not tripping today. So far anyways. I'm going to give it a minute here and let everybody get up in the chat. And then I do have a guest with me today. I have Hayley from Oddball Aquatics. And most of you might know as well, she works for Lucas Bretz over at L.R.B. Aquatics, helping him with all of his fish tanks. He has fish rooms. You know, he's got like 5 different rooms, it seems like, at this point. But we'll talk to her about that stuff. And she also keeps rope fish. And I thought it would be really cool to talk to her about her rope fish. I know nothing about them. I have an eel, but I don't know anything about rope fish. So it'd be interesting to hear about that. We have Knackered Aquarius. Let's see who else we have up in here. The Cove. Blue Waters, how are you? Happy Sunday. All right. D, how are you? It's good to see your new fish room over there. I just saw your stream a second ago. You know, everything happens for a reason, like I said before. I'm sure it'll be a good thing, and you got a lot more room in the end probably to play around. Jesse, all the way from Hawaii. Good to see you here in the stream. Superior Guppy. That's a new one for me. I don't know why. I think that's a new name for me. Petsotic, how are you? Petsotics, I did see you have a channel, or you have a website, but you also have a store over at getgills.com. I just set up a store over at getgills.com. I have my blue bolts, my yellow cardina for sale, as well as a bunch of different dried botanicals for blackwater aquariums, brackish water aquariums, and just inch shrimp tanks as well. Shishi's Beta, how are you? Riley, how are you as well? Alright, I don't want to waste too much time. I just wanted to give it a minute and let some people get up into the chat. And I have 26 people now. I'll just give it another second and just go with this. She's waiting patiently over in her fish room. The Fish Tank Barn, how are you, man? I'm enjoying your streams lately as well. It's nice to go in there and geek out and learn a little bit about saltwater as well. Sunshine Aquatics. Alrighty, about 31 in the chat. I don't want to waste too much time. Pro Tim Aquatics, JC Aquatics. I'm getting over a cold. I've been, me and the boss have both been passing it back and forth to each other. I'm trying to like sterilize the house and sleep in separate rooms and keep away from each other. Just trying not to get it back again. It's like playing a relay tag here. Alright, I don't want to waste too much more time. We'll go ahead and get into this. Let me move some things around real quick. And it'd be really nice to introduce to you guys Hayley from Oddball Aquatics. Let me get her up in here and put her on the other side. Hayley, how are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well. I haven't had any complaints from the stream, so it looks like everything is moving smoothly. I'm happy about that because, you know, it's always nice when technology is working in our favor for a little bit anyways.
Right.
It's always hit or miss. We see, who else we got up in here? I was just trying to check out the chat for a minute, but there's all kinds of people in here, about 33 people. Anyways, it's really nice to have you here. I've been watching your streams lately. I've seen you in, like, I've seen Oddball Aquatics a lot for, you know, a while in chats and stuff. In my chats, in other people's streams as well.
I'm a lurker.
Well, I see you comment and stuff, or I wouldn't see your name, you know. But thing is like I had you confused for a while there. There's Eric Bodrock, which has
Eric
a website.
Bodrock.
He has a website. He's been to Peru and some of the same spots as me collecting fish. And it's alloddballaquatics.com is his website. And I always thought of him as Oddball Aquatics, and I would see that, and I thought that I was reading messages from Eric Bodrock.
Eric
for a long
Bodrock.
time.
Yeah, I had that a lot when I first started. I chose that name well before I knew who Eric Bodrock was.
Yeah.
And once I chose it, I was like, well, at least I chose something that's associated with somebody that I find genius. So.
Well, you're into catfish as well, and that's a big thing for him. So
yeah, huge.
I think he's actually. I think he's got some books he's been doing or something like that. But I think he actually named. He's been naming a couple of the fish that we've been collecting. Same stuff that have been, just now being described and identified and named. I think he's got a couple of names. I got to talk with him because I'm not sure if this is right. So I'm not going to say that it's gospel. It's for true. But the Cheese Creek that everybody's been talking about, and Cheese Creek, that's a spot that I went to when I was in Peru, and I think that he came up with that name after, he didn't come up with the name, but he named it after the location that we were all in. Anyways, I gotta find that out for sure, but I know that he's
I think that's awesome. Those Cheese Creeks are awesome looking. Like, I love them. I love all the stuff you guys did in Peru. I've watched all of those videos. It was funny. I couldn't do that.
Dan pulled out a bag of fish in his unboxing video just yesterday, I guess. He put it out last night. And he's like, I got these mysterious apistogrammas. I don't know what they are. And I don't know, And I'm looking at them. I'm like, I have these fish. Like, I have these same fish. And it turns out they're the same. They're apistogramma rubelineata that are from Puerto Maldonado, or the Madre de Dios River Basin in southern Peru, which is that's where we got ours. Dean has some, I have some as well. I think Dwayne has some or had some. I don't know if they made it or not. Anyways, but you have rope fish, and I see that everybody always sees that in back of your streams. And
yeah, they're sleeping right now.
Yeah, and I was trying to read up a little bit on them, just a couple, over the weekend, just because I knew I was going to be streaming with you. I'd like to know something.
What do you want to know?
Yeah, right. And I found there was a lot of similarities between those in actual eels. I have a brackish water snowflake eel in this 55 up top, and they're nocturnal. I feed him fresh raw fish, shrimp specifically, and stuff like that. But I was like, they're kind of similar, except mine doesn't have, eel doesn't have any fins like that. Either this brackish water, this moray eel doesn't.
Yeah, the big thing is the breathing out of water and the fact that the rope fish actually leave water. Like, they can come up out of the water. I don't think they're fully aquatic. I think they're semi-aquatic.
There's somewhere related to like amphibians, probably
somewhere
down the line.
Kind of that link in the
evolution
fossil record between fish in the water and things on land.
Yeah. For some reason, they kind of remind me of a dragon even sometimes. But that, you sent me some pictures. I have a in the stream right now below us on screen is I don't know which one it was. It was the side shot, the same one that I used. Well, his name, anyways. The one that I used for the thumbnail.
Yeah.
What's his name? Does he has a name?
That one doesn't have a name.
Oh, well,
okay. See, if you look at that one, he has both of those. What are they called? Nares or whatever, the little feelers on the front of their face.
Like odontals kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, odontals. There you go. Yeah, he has both of those. Toothless actually is the only one that has a name, and he, when we got him in, they come in with this like fungus stuff sometimes, and they're all wild caught. So they'll come in with this fungus on them, and it's super, super hard to beat. Like, they die really fast from it. Toothless is the only one that I've been able to save, and he actually lost that part of his face. We call him Toothless. He just looks a little weird.
I'm trying not to ignore the chat. That's awesome. I'm trying not to ignore the chat. I'm just saying hi to everybody. I see everybody in there. Everybody's talking to each other, saying hi to each other, and saying hi to you as well.
Hello.
So when I see 15 inches is the length of them, like I have about 18 inches on my eel. I'm just
They say 15 to 18 inches. Part
Yeah.
of me thinks that that's because 90% of the time, you know how there's like information on some species that is probably not correct because we don't get them to live long enough to know the correct information.
Yeah.
I think that's probably part of it. I don't think people keep them long enough for them to get bigger than that. But I've had them come in at 12 inches, 13 inches. So it's like if I'm getting them at full size, maybe that's true, but I think they can get bigger.
Yeah, it's kind of with my eel as well. He, you know, I was reading up on them when I kind of rescued him. I felt like he wasn't in like really sick when I got him, but I got him from a pet store here, and I knew enough about them already that they were brackish water and that they couldn't take, that they needed certain parameters. And I really like I knew that this fish was doomed because down here and in where I'm at, nobody's gonna go through what I would go through. Some people will probably would, maybe, but for the most part, I don't know anybody else is doing what I'm doing and would actually like give that fish what it needs. And I was just afraid it was doomed to go in some kid's bedroom and just die in a couple of weeks in fresh water and get fungus on, you know, from no salt in the water and stress out and never eat. And they try to feed it flakes, because I asked the people in the pet store, I'm like, what do you feed your eel? And they're like, flake food like everybody else. And I'm just like, oh man, I just had to bite my tongue and walk away. I really don't support this establishment anymore, just because, you know, I ended up just rescuing fish, and fish I didn't really want. So I didn't really even want him, honestly, at first. I thought it was cool, kind of, but I knew it was going to be some work. But I was more like just saving its life. And then I'm reading up on it, and it says that they don't live in captivity more than 2 to 3 years. That's the average, anyways. And then you find out that some people can make them, you know, get them to live 6, 7 years, but it's about giving them the proper parameters and actually like giving them a true brackish water and feeding a variety of like raw fresh meats. So what do you feed your rope fish?
Frozen bloodworm and frozen beef heart. Occasionally I do some earthworms, but I'm having a real hard time sourcing those earthworms from a source that I know doesn't have anything bad in it. Like, I'm going to have to start culturing my own earthworms because I don't trust the bait shops to not have anything weird that they've been feeding them or that they've been kept in or near or around, or pesticides or whatever.
And you never know, too. I mean, earthworms are kind of a creature. They've got a lot of different organisms that are living in them naturally. You know, that they live with their own parasites and worms. That's what helps digest their food, actually. But I do the same thing. I add earthworms to the diet because I give him a lot of shrimp. I call him a him. I don't know. His name is Elliot. But I give him a lot of shrimp. But just to substitute that, to give him some other minerals and stuff and things that he's not getting from that shrimp meat, which who knows what's, you know, besides some protein and fiber. Anyways, I do some earthworms, but that's it.
I'm actually working on a pond for the rope fish because part of that whole, I'm trying to make them breed and I'm trying to get them to the most natural setting possible. Part of that is I really think that they eat terrestrial insects because there's been studies like back in the 80s of them coming up on land to get food. So I'm going to try things like soft-bodied worms, like terrestrial worms, and
or even beetles, maybe.
Beetles or crickets, or I think I'm going to try like some wingless fruit flies and see if I can get them, when I get them into that pond, to come up on the land and get food, because I think that's probably part of their enrichment. Yeah,
see, I can't go there. That's the reason why I don't have I do love reptiles. I grew up with them. My father was a big fish, reptile, just animal pet guy, and that's where I get this all from. We've had my parents imported iguanas from Mexico. I grew up in the pet trade, international pet trade, and so yeah. What was I getting at? Oh, I stay away from I stay away from reptiles and stuff. Just I don't. It's the thing is all the food, all the crazy bugs, live food, and I just like that's the last thing I keep telling myself. No crickets. I don't want to have like some lost cricket in my apartment, and I have to hear that thing in the middle of the night, and you can't get to it. Like I've been there as a kid when my father did this stuff, and so I'm like, no reptiles. Plus, they do have a certain odor. I mean, I do love snakes too. When I have a facility one day, the dream situation, you know, I'll have a room. It'll be a fish, you know, a snake room. I'll have a fish room. I'll have a snake room, and temperature, humidity controlled, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's gonna probably smell like reptiles in there. Like I grew up with iguanas, and they have their own special odor,
distinct odor.
And I think a fish room can too, but I think if you have really clean tanks, I've been in very large fish rooms that did not smell fishy, and I think it's because it's just cleanliness and water changes, and you're not leaving anything. You know, you leave one little thing sitting around and forgotten about, like a hang on the back that's not not running anymore, and it starts to get funny. Yeah, now you got to smell. But anyways, yeah, I kind of stay away from the reptiles as much as I do love them, and I think that I have nothing against them. It's the food. It's having a container of beetles, a container of crickets, and who knows, cockroaches, whatever you're gonna grow to feed them. Anyways,
all kinds of stuff.
So,
yeah, I had a 2-bedroom apartment when I first like went out on my own as a kid, and I filled the 2nd bedroom with reptiles, like absolutely filled it. And there was the minute I decided to start downsizing, that was the day that I lost 1,000 crickets in the apartment.
Yeah.
They all got out of the box, and it was a nightmare.
Or they'll even eat their way through the paper. They'll eat their way out of the container depending on what you got them in.
I don't know what happened, but it was a nightmare.
I've seen them do that where they've eaten a whole, or even we used to have snakes a lot. I've had that happen to too. We've had that where they sell it to you in the little cardboard box, and
chews right out of it.
They're not stupid. You can't leave that thing around. You put it in the tank. As soon as you get home, it goes in the tank with the snake. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah, and I've got, Amber from Big City Beta. She's got me thinking about snakes. She keeps talking about her snakes, and it's getting me.
Snakes.
And I know there's going to be a lot of them in Dallas, and that brings us to that too. You're going to be at the Aquatic Experience. I'm sorry.
I am.
The Aquashella, which is going to be the new big thing. I feel like, we're just on year 2, but they went from year 1 with 1 location to year 2 with 2 locations, and I think that the fact that it's being put together by someone who is one of the founders is a YouTuber, content creator in the saltwater world, George, and then Sean, which obviously he's worked for Fritz Mardell for many years. And the combination of that, I feel like this is going to be a little bit more YouTube friendly and content, influencer and content. We're definitely going to have our space there. They're giving us a pretty large spot. And I don't know. I just think it's things are changing and evolving. And the fact that they're making this funner for like young people and kids, the layout, it's not such like a corporate trade show like the Aquatic Experience. It's more fun with art installations and lighting and DJ music and different like themed rooms and stuff. I feel like it makes it but it makes it funner for the whole family. I feel like it brings the youth into it a little bit more, and it's and like I said, it's funner for content like influencers too, content creators, and and I think that the fact that the more that content creators and influencers in the community, people like us here on this platform and other platforms. My dog wants something. It's under the table and he can't get to it. One of his toys. He's crying. Anyways, I'm gonna have to get it, or I'll hear about it the rest of the stream. Yeah, he's crying. Yeah, it's his ball, his treat, his something thing is underneath.
Dad, please get it.
No, I just think it'll be a good event, and I think that it'll it's gonna I don't know. I feel like it gives it putting us on the spotlight, influencers. I don't know. I feel like it's gonna give us even more opportunities, kind of like last year at the Aquatic Experience, for people that are looking to influence other products and kind of get involved on another level and like find sponsorships and stuff like that, and actually business deals and stuff. Because I know a lot of people that are content creators here. One of the dreams and goals is kind of to create a make this it's your business. I don't know. If I could just breed livestock for a living, like Lucas kind of does, yeah. I mean, whether or not his wife supports him or not, if I could get away with hanging out in a fish room.
She's as supportive as you can be when your significant other puts 300 fish tanks in your house. She's very supportive for that.
Oh, supportive. I meant financially supporting him.
Oh.
Yeah, no,
he supports himself financially.
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
Okay, so no, but I just think that it's like that's the dream for a lot of us, and I think that if we can kind of like, I don't know, I think things are changing where us as content creators and stuff are being seen as true influencers, and that we have, there's a role that we play, and that there is an opportunity for us to work with them as with products, and being affiliates and stuff. Anyways, blah, 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 blah. That's business stuff. I really don't like to get in. I'm not even getting into that. Forget it. Anyways, Alluring Beta is in here. We have Pamela, 54 Punchy. Let's see.
My mom's in here. I'm not taking her to Dallas. She wants to go. She's not going. You're not going.
Mom is not going? No.
No. She wants to go. And I have an extra ticket. I just don't know what I'm doing with it yet. Because I bought 2 tickets, one for me, one for my best friend. And then Lucas decided to tell me that he's giving me a vendor pass. Because apparently I'm going to work. And since I'm driving, he's going to fill my vehicle with a bunch of stuff, apparently. So now I have an extra ticket.
Yeah, you shouldn't be paying to get into the into Aquashella. I don't know. I've never paid at this point between aquatic experience and Aquashella. I haven't paid, but then again, I'm trying. You know, it's paid to get in anyways, and I've had some sponsorships with other stuff like that. But I think that I don't know. My goal by going too, though, is not. It's kind of business. It's not just like to socialize and party. Like obviously, I'm a nerd for fish, and the community is really, really important. But I'm also going there to kind of like support the whole event and make sure that I can put out some content.
That's why I paid for my tickets. Like I was like, well, I can probably talk to somebody, and probably Lucas can get me a ticket or whatever. But then I was like, you know what? I'm taking my best friend. I want to support this thing anyway. I'm just going to go ahead and buy the tickets. I'm driving down there, you know, whatever. So.
Well, see, what I'll do is like, especially something like Aquashella, where I know 2 of the 2 founders of it. Like I know them personally, so it's not something that I don't know. I'm gonna go in there early. Well, no, but
a little more of a noob.
My point was, I plan on going early and kind of like paying my dues in regard through like community service, like helping to set things up. If Shane if Sean or George need like anything in regards to setting things up, or the YouTube booth, I'm bringing all this lighting that I have behind me. I'm bringing that with me, and that will be at the YouTube booth. I'm gonna set up the lights back, like up lights on the wall behind our YouTube booth, and I can kind of, you know, I can play around with this stuff, so I can program it however I do whatever I want with it.
Change it all up.
Yeah, and I'll have it like I'll set some scenes and stuff here before I leave, and I've done a lot of stage lighting and stuff like that in high school, and working with musicians and bands on tour and stuff. That's kind of my thing, lights and sound, and so that's one of the things that I'm kind of contributing to the YouTube booth, is I'm going to bring my lighting and stuff to kind of like just kick it up a notch. You know, you see the videos of Aquashella. I've never been there before, but it looks pretty cool with all the lighting and the black lights, and you know.
I'm gonna bring this hat.
I just feel like we should definitely, to stand out with everybody else, we kind of need to like kick it up a notch. I know that's a killer hat, and
I'm gonna bring that hat, and I've also got a really bomb outfit that
what did Priscilla found?
Glows in the black light.
Priscilla found a pair of sunglasses that are like match the hat. Yeah, no, but
like
they're
LED gloves. Yeah.
Yeah, she found these light up sunglasses that are like neon blue that match the hat. Hey.
So awesome. Playing with the black lights is gonna be the best part. Like, gonna fish nerd out for sure, but
well,
the
I
black
think they'll
lights
be doing
crack me up.
They're gonna pass out the orange glasses.
Right.
As well to help check out the coral better. That's pretty cool too. But back to the beginning though, I'm just really curious. Like, what got you into the whole hobby in the beginning?
Well, I've always had pets. Always, like a lot of pets. I am a super pet nerd. I have had skunks. I've had raccoons. I've had actually, before I got really deep into the hobby where I am now, I was doing a falconry apprenticeship, so I was learning how to train and fly hawks and falcons.
My father's a falconer. He keeps a red-tailed hawk.
Yeah, red-tail was what I was working on. I was in between a red-tail and a kestrel. It was undecided. But then I got pregnant with my daughter, and I kind of was stuck in the house for the winter, and I've always had a fish tank at some point, but it's always been like that 55-gallon where you go, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and you put it all in, and there's a common pleco in there, and, you know, that fish tank.
Yeah.
And then when I had my daughter, I decided that I was going to take the little betta tank I have, and I was like, I'm going to try plants. I know you can put plants in a fish tank. And then it was over. Like 9 tanks later, I was working for Lucas Breads and cleaning 300 fish tanks a week. Like... the plants did it for me. Now, the rope fish keeps me here because I want to breed this fish. I think this is important, but the fact that I can create little worlds in boxes and I'm in control of them, I love that.
Yeah, there's like, I said that yesterday to a friend, just in regards to breeding, how there is like the kind of a God thing, like where you're kind of in control of nature a little bit. Yeah, but I try to be respectful of that. One thing that's really important for me personally when it comes to breeding is I'm very much into conservation as well. So I try not to, I don't want to say I don't do any inbreeding in regards to like a breeding program. I try to keep the blood clean and healthy so like a lot of the fish that I am trying to breed right now, I'm trying to breed them with conservation in mind and keeping the genetics clean. I'm not trying to breed them for show or for just to make a certain pretty fish. I mean, I'll do that with like my indlers because I don't know, they're just so prolific, and it's actually fun because it happens quickly. Like you can get through a few generations. You know, it doesn't take years to kind of selectively breed. I mean, it does take years but I mean, you know, it's faster than a lot of other fish where you're waiting six months to 8 months for a
grow out's a lot faster too.
Yeah, the grow out's a lot faster. Yeah, so I don't want to say I don't do that at all, but when certain species of stuff, like anything that I brought back from Peru, I'm keeping those genetics, you know, clean. Like, and I just got some killifish from Dan that are they fly out on Tuesday to me, and.
Awesome.
But it's a breeding pair, and as far as I know, they're not related. And then I was trying to get another pair for him, and he's like, you know, he was going to sell me another pair, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, they're, you know, just
from the same line?
Yeah, just remind you, I want to make sure that they're not related. I need them to be unrelated. There's no point to it to me, because, especially since the pair that I'm bringing in are pure blood from a specific location, a collection point. They're from the wild, so I'd want those instead of any kind of domesticated killifish.
Yeah, the ropefish breeding project is for sure a conservation project. Like, if we don't get those to tank breed, and the 2 spots that they come from in Africa get destroyed by the oil and the palm fields, it's over. They're gone. Like, if we can't breed them in a tank, they're not going to be on this planet forever. Like, it's just not going to happen. So that's my conservation project. And then I do have a Cares fish, but Lucas stole it from me because I don't have a cold water tank, and it needed a cold water tank. So I have a goodie, and it's eyes and eye. So like most of like when I'm actually like digging into different fish and stuff to breed, I usually only breed them like once or twice. I really am only in it to get the BAT points for the Breeders' Award program in our club. And then I'm going to move on to a different fish. Like, that's why I'm constantly changing it up. Like, I bred the Paleatus Cories, and then I took them all to Lucas's, and I was like, you can sell whatever you want here. I already got my BAT points to get the different species of Cory. Like,
nice.
Just kind of cycling through it.
Yeah, it definitely is. You know, I think there's just 2 different levels. There's some people, you know, to each their own, but there's just some people that definitely just keep tanks. They want to keep fish. But for me, that's not enough. Like, I have to get into the breeding of it. It's just, I'm addicted. I'm ruined.
I gotta research something. Yeah. I gotta learn something. Like,
but I get what you're saying. Like, also, if I'm breeding something, it's kind of like I want to do it for a good reason, and not just to just do it. But I mean, I'm not part of any BAT program, or I don't have a fish club or anything where I'm at. I am the fish club.
Well, you chose to live on an island.
Yeah. So, I do stuff for fun, more for the challenge that are not, if it's not for conservation. So like, well, the tetras that I'm doing right now, that is conservation. It's on the red list, but that's actually like the first tetra that I've ever spawned, and that's really exciting because to me they seem a little bit more challenging, and the fry are so small. You start having to get into infusoria tanks and stuff like that just for their first foods, and I just love the challenge. I'm not out for like easy fish. I mean, guppies, obviously I think for most people guppies are the first thing that they actually reproduce. And they
well, they don't do it. The guppies do it on their own.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, and I feel like that about,
put them in the tank and they go.
I feel like that about a lot of fish. That's one thing too. I feel like a lot of people will the whole idea of I bred this or I bred that. For the most part, what we did is we created an environment that made them comfortable enough to breed, and they bred. Like, we didn't we didn't. It wasn't artificial insemination. They did
Right,
it.
you didn't do anything.
No, they did it.
You did water changes.
Yeah, I did water changes, and you gave them cover and plants and leaf litter, and they did it.
And they did it.
Well, like the tetra that I have, they, you know, these are like, I'm like one of the only people, and I don't know, at least only people that I know, only person that I know that's breeding this. And I've been doing a lot of research trying to find something somewhere, and there's not even any paperwork on any site of like their courting behaviors, and
That's how
but
I
they're
feel about these.
right, but they're on the red list, and their environment is endangered by a lot of gold mining and illegal gold mining and
Yep.
logging and stuff like that. So
And you need to do something about it.
yeah, well, it's just nice that they. But my point is like I just gave them. I tried to make a tank that replicated where I found them in the wild, like exact kind of area that I found them in, which was like underneath some plants on the edge of the creek. They would hide in the shade of the branches that are falling into the water, and all the leaves that are, of the bush by the bank that's falling into the water. They'd hide out underneath of there, and you just scoop right under. You could see them in like groups of like 10 to 13. Anyway, so I just replicated that, and then they did it on their own. I go in the tank. I only had them for 2 weeks, and I'm like, what? Like, I see these little fry and the floating plants up at the top. So they were spawning. So I guess in the wild is what we've come to. Our guess is, for the most part, is that they spawn on the leaves that have fallen into the water. They spawn onto those leaves, and then the fry hang out at the top of the water, right at the edge of the water, and eat infusoria in the very beginning, and then make their way kind of out into the water with the other fish. But the cool thing, too, is that the parents aren't eating the fry.
Oh, that's pretty sweet.
And that's just because I think it's because they're wild. They're not domesticated at all. They have all their, their native, their natural instincts are all still there genetically in their head. They're not like F1s, or they're wild caught. So they grew up
I think
in
part of
the
the
Amazon.
reason that the parents go after the fry in our tanks is because they know that there's limited resources. Like, they've already figured it out. They know there's limited resources. They know if there's more mouths to feed, they're going to eat less. They just kind of know that somehow, and I think that's a domestic fish thing. I think you're right about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I see that with my pistogrammas. Well, pistogrammas aren't necessarily going to... They're pretty good parent raisers anyways. But especially with these tetra, and I've kind of tested... I mean, I've sat there and watched the parents, like, swimming right around these little microscopic fry, eating up the first bites that I put down... I dusted the water with just for the fry. They don't touch them. They know that they're babies of their own kind, and if anything, whatever. It's pretty cool though how it happens naturally. When you're not even really trying. I mean, you're trying, but you gotta leave it. You gotta have just patience and just let it happen.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm doing with these ropefish. Is I'm trying 100% to replicate what they are in nature, because I think that's the only way we're gonna actually get them to breed and be successful. Because people have had them breed in their tanks, but they never get the babies to survive, and they can't trigger them to breed. It's like a random thing, and they discover babies, and they're like, oh, what do I do, or whatever. So what I did was I contacted an exporter in Nigeria, and I had him send a really junk camera phone out with one of the villagers that collects for him, so I got pictures back of the actual spot where they do their collecting, so that I could replicate kind of how it looks. That's why I'm going with a pond, because I think they need a deep mud substrate. I think they need a ridiculous amount of plant cover, because they come from like these swampy areas where it's like half land, half water, all vegetation and mud. So I'm trying to replicate that, because I think it's going to be really important for getting them to breed.
Yeah, for all you know, that they lay their eggs like in the mud. They make a nest in a.
I've been talking to a basically a scientist. He's a Nigerian guy that did all of his studies. He works for a college over there, and he did all of his studies on ropefish. And he's actually seen them in the wild, collected them in the wild, all of that. So I've been talking to him, and one of the big things, and now we're getting into this, so this is cat out of the bag, secret stuff, but one of the big things we were talking about is I asked him, where are you finding the babies? Because I have video of them collecting ropefish, and there are no babies in there. It's not like they're throwing the little ones back and only keeping the big ones. You never see, they're called fingerlings in the pet trade or anything like that. I said, where are the babies at? Where are you finding them? He said, they're in the mud.
Yeah.
I said, how deep are they in the mud? He said, they're pretty deep in there. So I really think that they are egg scatterers. They lay their eggs in vegetation, and then the babies live as fingerlings in the mud for a certain amount of time. And I think that's
kind of like
they're
kind of like living like a worm in their when they're a baby. Just like an earthworm would do, or something like that, or like red worms or something.
It's the only thing I can think of that we don't do in the aquaria, the deep substrate beds, because everybody's afraid of it.
Well, that's what I do.
And mud. I mean,
that's what I do. I don't have mud.
It's actually awesome.
I have sand, but like my blackwater aquarium, my goal with any of my serious blackwater tanks, like Amazon style ones and stuff, is I'm creating leaf litter, and I never pull it out.
Building up.
Yeah, I don't vacuum the tank at all. I mean, I just polish the water. I keep enough of a flow so that the suspended solids can get polished out of the water with like a hang on the back, like a power head or something like that with a filter, a pre-filter on that, and just polish the water so that the water column is clean, like it would be in a river. Like, you know, places in Peru, the water is flowing, so the water has tannins, but it's still clear. You know, it's crystal clear with tannins. And then there's like 3 feet of muddy leaf litter that you're sinking in, but because the water's flowing so well, it's not like the actual water column itself is just, you know, packed full of like suspended solids and like mulm and stuff like that. Anyways, so my goal with like I've got a few tanks right now where it's just I have one tank where all it is leaf litter. There's no sand, there's no substrate. It's just leaf litter on top of leaf litter, and say 6, 8 months, 10 years, you know, I mean, a year down the road.
10 years?
10 years, right, whatever. Eventually, yeah, 10 years from now, you're, you know, 5 years from now.
10 years from now, it's going to be boss.
you'd have this whole layer of mud. It's just, you'd be like creating, it'd be a whole composting, a whole thing going on. So you'd have leaf litter down to like sludgy mud stuff, and
that's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
That's the goal, except instead of doing it like super black water, with like, and I'm going to put leaf litter and stuff in there because I'm sure that there's like tannins and stuff in this water, but it's much more hot, low oxygen, still water in this area. There's not a lot of flow. So somehow I've got to figure out how to keep the flow low, have a mud substrate with no cap, because I don't want to cap it off to them, and yet keep the water polished. That's my trick right now, is figuring out what I'm going to do filtration-wise to the pond with that setup and not just turn it into
I do it kind of like, this is getting into the other stuff I want to ask you about Lucas and stuff, but I would do it kind of like he does with some of his hang on the backs, where you have a pre-filter and you just like hot rod out a hang on the back filter, but he likes to put like those little ramps attached. I don't know if he's taking them off, but I know at one point he was doing these, like he was totally retrofitting his tanks. Oh, but like he had it where like it was a little ramp, but it would slow down the flow a little bit. It was like a little piece of plastic grate or whatever, and it would slow down the flow, and algae things would grow on it. You could even have like plants growing on it. But
he's got pearlweed growing on one right now. I think he's got one of those left because he has literally shut off every filter. He's shut off all of his air pumps. He's running tanks of water, and it's amazing. But I mean, that's what he's running, is just tanks with water in them and plants. So
that's kind of what
awesome.
That's where I've always been. I think it's really cool that you get to be in that fish room. I'm kind of jealous because I kind of follow a lot of the same theories and methods. And to me, the biggest thing that I've learned from him is, you know, really keep it simple. I mean, people get into this hobby and they watch a bunch of videos and they just get overloaded with all these information, and then they start dumping pH up and down and all these crazy things into their tank and chemicals and API Pimifix and Melifix, and then they're freaking killing their fish because they can't breathe anymore. Like,
right, it's just chemical.
Yeah,
they tested their TDS to be through the roof.
Right, if they only knew, like, that's where you really need to just start, is like you're, you know, and stop chasing. You know, that's what I tell anybody that's beginner at it, is don't chase your pH. You know,
that's what I tell people too. Don't fight your water.
Yeah, don't fight your water. But I mean, you know, if you, That's a big thing. But anyways, that's one thing I got from him though, is just really, he just keeps it simple. I love, that's why I'm into blackwater aquariums, because I don't have to do anything to my blackwater aquarium except add leaf litter. And I do have a hang on the back to polish the water, specifically just to polish the water more than anything.
Right. If you took it off, it'd be perfectly fine. It wouldn't look as good.
Yeah, you'd have some more suspended solids, which isn't that good for the fish, the angelfish as well, because after a while, you get enough of that suspended mulm and stuff, it starts to actually just stick to the fish. It'll be on their fins and stuff, and then can actually start to cause some kind of a fungal fin rot thing. You want to keep the suspended solids down, I feel like, but that's it. Yeah, no, I just like how he keeps it really, really simple and organic, natural.
Makes my job easier.
I like his substrate lasagna theory. I mean, so I mix, but that does make sense. I mean, there's something about it. I mean, that's what aquascapers do for the most part.
Right.
Is they kind of
mix stuff up.
Well, but they create layers. Like, they'll have layers where, like, there's different stuff and they work their way up, different substrates.
Yeah, my aquascaping skills are jungle. That's about it. I can make a jungle. Like, if you ever need an aquascaped jungle, I can do that all day. But as far as, like, creating depth, not really my forte.
So I'm trying to I asked for some questions, and then I got off tangent with you. Well, that's our problem. Both of us do that. So it's... Yeah, after working with Lucas, Greg Ben asked this. After working with Lucas, how has it changed the way that you look at your personal aquariums, your personal fish tanks?
I want to shut my filters off because I want to use less power, but I am afraid because it's that fear. Like, I've seen it work. I know it works. I know it works on a 240-gallon aquarium. You don't have to run anything on it, and it works. But there's that fear, because for the longest time, when you start out in this hobby, everybody tells you, don't do too deep of a substrate or you get the sulfur bubbles in. Make sure you clean your water, and make sure you gravel vac, and make sure you're running this much filtration per gallon, and this much air per whatever, and like, they instill fear in you that you're going to do something wrong and affect the life of your pet. And
then you start second guessing, well, I think people try too quickly. I used to have a really big green thumb and work with horticulture and stuff like that as well, and farming. And one thing I learned from plants is that if you do something wrong to it, it's if you do something negative to it, or a deficiency of some kind, it doesn't change overnight. Like, you can't, it's like an aquarium. I feel like it's the same way. It's nature's is all the same way. Right. You can't just change something overnight. It's gonna take time. Like, with a plant, you're looking at 2-3 weeks before you're gonna be able to get that plant to bounce back from what you did to it wrong.
5 minutes of panic.
Yeah, literally, 5 minutes of stressing. Yeah, you could literally just stress a plant out in a matter of minutes or hours, and it's going to take 2-3 weeks, a month for that plant to come back around from what you've done to it. But so I feel like it's the same thing with, like, an aquarium. You can't just, like, there's no quick fixes in nature. It's going to take time for something to fix something, whether it be an algae outbreak, right? An algae outbreak's not going to go away overnight. You can't pour some algae fix in there and just think that you're going to come back tomorrow and
it'll be gone.
All the algae is going to be brown, but your fish are still going to be alive. Because
no, it's not. That's how it works. And my thing with turning my filters off is my tanks are cycled and balanced with the filters. And so my current fear is, if I shut my filters off, what is the result of that going to be? I mean, eventually it will balance itself out, but am I going to get a bacterial bloom first? Am I going to get green water? Am I going to get this or that or the other, It may be nothing. I mean, I did... Right.
I did 2 months without power after Hurricane Irma and Maria, and I did lose a lot of plants with the lack of photosynthesis, but, I didn't have to...
That's about it.
They didn't have to do any... They took care of themselves. Nobody died. Shrimp died. I had a crash of my red cherry shrimp, but all the fish were fine. And I kind of knew I wasn't stressing it. I mean, there was bigger things after what we went through. It was like an atomic bomb went off. It was apocalyptic. So it wasn't like the fish came last. I had to worry about life and
Other things.
and survival. And I know I come in here and check out the fish when the sun would shine through the window just right. I could get some light onto the tanks and see what's going on. Surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, but the Crips and Anubias, things like that, they were fine. They lived through it because they didn't even need the light. Yeah, they were fine. But that brings me to another question. When you're talking about plants, I saw a question. I think I know the answer. It'd be the same answer that I know the answer that I would give in response to this. But what was your favorite kind of filtration? What was it? Yeah, after working with Lucas, how was your idea of filtration? But we've just been talking about that. But
yeah.
I think really in the end, like the best filtration is plants.
It's plants, right?
Plants.
Plants are 100% the best way to filter a tank. And if I thought that the balance in my tank wasn't affected by the hang on the backs that I have on there now, I would shut them off. And purely for power reasons. Like, the only reason I run them now is for water polishing because I have Corydoras. And let me tell you something, if you don't have a water polisher on a Corydora tank, there's going to be some particulate matter in your water column because they're going to kick it up.
Yeah, no, definitely. Let's see, what else was... There was a question about the rope... A couple questions about the rope fish. The first one was, what would you feed... Well, how long have you had the rope fish? Yeah.
These that I have here, I have had since, I believe, like September of last year. Now, I've kept rope fish every time I've had a fish tank, but I always kept them like in a community tank with a bunch of other fish. And when you keep a rope fish in a community tank, you generally have a skinny, skittish rope fish. And when I started keeping them in a species only tank, I now have big, fat, happy, all out all the time rope fish. So,
well, Tampa Tom was also asking some things about the rope fish, and I think this is stuff nobody knows, and this is the problem. He's asking about the rope fish breeding, and do you think that there's an odd time, like spring or fall, like one time a year that they like to breed, and then he's wondering if there's actually like a level of maturity that they have to get to first, like.
So from what I've read and from talking to the scientists that I've been talking to in Nigeria, my initial thought was that they were a seasonal breeder, that it had something to do with the wet and dry season. But his information is that they breed all year round. So I kind of got off of that tangent, and I'm thinking maybe that's not a seasonal thing. What was the second half of that question? I totally just lost it.
Oh, just about age. Do you think that there's
age, right? Yeah. There is like next to zero information on them breeding, their breeding courtship, how old they are when they breed, that kind of stuff. I found one article from a fish keeper in the UK. It was actually in Tropical Fish Keeping or Practical Fish Keeping magazine back in like 1994. A guy named Rolf Bretz bred rope fish, and he said that they had them for 10 years before they bred, and that they lived an additional 10 after that. So we're talking about a 20-year-old fish. Yeah. Now, take that with a grain of salt. That's one person's anecdotal evidence, but we don't ever know how old they are because they're all wild caught.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, these could be 2-year-old fish. These could be 15-year-old fish. I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy too. I mean, that's the thing with a lot of this. I think when you really start to geek out on fish and get deep, you know, you get past to like your first community tank or whatever, you start getting into breeding and stuff, or you fall in love with a specific species, you start to realize how small the community and the world really is, you know, and how little people we actually as humans know about some of these animals. And you know, you see that with like wild betta fish, a lot of different species, you know, that we're still learning every day. And then you realize like with the tetra, for me, it's like I didn't think I was doing anything special. Like I would just
right, like why has no one done this?
Yeah, they're just some cute little you know blue, you know, iridescent blue tetras that are really, really tiny, and you know, wow, they're cool. Like I liked them because they were pretty. That's why I wanted to bring them back. And then, you know, then you realize they're on the red list, they're on the cares list, they're, you know, they're.
My thing is, like, you grow up as a kid in school thinking that, like, all the information is out there, like somebody's doing all of it, and then you go to look for a specific piece of information and you're like, wait, no one's looked at that, no one wants to know what's going on here with this thing. Like,
yeah, no, I had someone contact me. They were looking for information about some different species of fish in Peru, not Peru, but in the Amazon basin in South America. And they contacted me and they were kind of bummed out that there were not, like, there wasn't some website where they could go to and all this stuff was there, like, for like all the different species in the biotopes and what they looked like and this and that. And I was like, why do you think I went to Peru? Because I'm not going to find out any other way. Like, it's not out there. No, I mean, you can dig.
If it doesn't have an impact on, like, money or the medical industry or something like that, there's not really a lot of study going into it. I mean,
no, and it's yeah, I know. I just feel like I realize how small the whole community is, and like that there's
super small.
It gets small, especially when you start really like getting to know different breeders and collectors and people that have actually like named fish and realize that, like, yeah, it's not as there's not a lot. There's us that care, but there's not, like, right. It doesn't make anybody enough money
with a lot of money and power and, you know, ability to fly to these places, and yeah, it's just a bunch of backroom fish nerds trying to figure out what's going on in a bunch of random rivers all across the world.
Right. So I got a crazy question for you. Question of mine, nothing from the chat. But when it comes to working for Lucas and taking care of, like, all of, I mean, how many tanks does he have now?
If you count all of them individually, it's like 300.
300. And I think when I was at Aquatic Experience 2 years ago and hung out with it and interviewed him, he had just won, like, he won a contest or something, and he got that was his 200th tank, I think. Was that tank that he won at the Aquatic Experience and was bringing home, and that was number 200 at that point. So he's got another 100 since then.
Well, and it's like you think about 100 fish tanks or 200 fish tanks or whatever, and that's one thing if it's like 10-gallon tanks. Some of these are 125, 240-gallon tanks. Like, the 240 takes half a day just to refill, because
and the whole wall of the whole one side of a room, right?
Oh yeah, I mean it's a third of the garage. It's huge, but I mean, it's amazing, and like you don't really think about how much you've done until at the end of the day you look back and you go, okay, how many tanks did I clean today? And you start counting and you go, oh, 64. I did 64 tanks today.
Nice.
A little bit nuts.
Right, and I want to complain about my 18 right now. It's like
I don't want to do my water changes.
No, and that's part of the problem too. I think people get into they go through levels, they go through stages, because you start out with one tank and then you end up with, you know, 20 or 20 or whatever. Yeah, or maybe it works its way up 5 and 10, 15, 20.
Maybe you control yourself.
And then you realize, wait a minute, I gotta clean all these tanks. I gotta monitor all these tanks and all these fish and feed everybody, and like, okay, wait a minute. Like, there's a point where
you go through the stage. Then you go through the stage where you get the python, and you're like, oh, my life is so much easier because I have the python and it fills, and I don't have to carry buckets. And then you get up to Lucas's level where you've literally created the fastest RO system in the West that runs like a tap, and it's still not fast enough. Like, that's the one thing I complain about in his fish room is I need the RO unit to move faster because I move faster than it.
Oh yeah,
and it's like, it's already a monster of an RO system, and I still need it to be faster.
Yeah, my dream is to actually get a real facility going on, because I'm a plumber by trade, so I have no problem. I got it in my head right now how I would plumb the whole thing on the wall, like, and I've got an RODI system now, but yeah, that's like a trickle. I get like. Takes me about 6 or 7 hours to
like 3 gallons an hour or something like that. Like, it's ridiculously slow. His run's like a tap. Like, it's amazing. But I don't run RO water because for the longest time I watched Lucas and I watched all the other fish tubers that are like, don't fight your water, work with your water. And then I get into his fish room and I'm like, well, what's this giant RO unit doing here?
Well, I think there's a point when, if that can be really dangerous in the end, especially if you've got a lot on the line. That's why I do RODI.
That whole point.
Plus, it's kind of like having a blank canvas. It goes hand in hand with the whole idea of, you know, measuring TDS. Like, to me, there's no point in using my TDS meter if my water didn't start out at 0 to 15 parts per million, because
you don't know what that is.
I don't know what it is, right? And now I know, like, I make all my own water like he does, and I remineralize it. So when I've hit 200 or 300 TDS, like I have some shrimp tanks that have like stuff that would I hurt Lucas's head when I saw him this last, you know, when we were in Chicago, or you know, for the aquatic experience in New Jersey, and I'm telling him, like, I have like between 500 and 700 parts per million TDS in a Caridina shrimp tank, and I have 2,000 shrimp in there. But the thing is it's what that TDS is. I mean, that's still kind of a little high. But they don't die because the TDS is like different.
Stuff.
It's right stuff. It's minerals and stuff, and salts and things like that the shrimp actually are fine with. It doesn't really harm them.
Yeah,
so.
And he's on Indiana tap water, like Indianapolis tap water, which is horrible. They constantly dump stuff in it without telling people. They'll up the levels of stuff they dump in it without telling people. So I absolutely understand why he uses RO water. Now, I have a well, so I don't have to worry about that. I love my well.
So out of, you know, when it comes to working for Lucas, what, in your day job, when you're clocked in, what's the favorite thing, the favorite part of the job, and what is the worst thing, the thing that you like dislike the most about the job, or without getting yourself in trouble with Lucas? You already messed up the other day. Well, you already fired from the other stream when you said that some other guy was your favorite fish keeper. When you said Dean, which Dean is, but Dean is probably one of my favorite that I know personally. And
if I had to pick somebody to go over him, come on, at least it's Dean.
Yeah, I know. I have to say the same thing, but you know, after hanging out in the jungle with him and going over,
I can't imagine
techniques of species. Well, he one thing, he makes you laugh all the time. He's a comical guy.
He's hilarious.
He's hilarious, and he's got a joke like every 5 minutes, and I love the fact that he's a happy, chill guy. He's got a sense of humor, and he like lives by that sense of humor. He's not like,
and he's a cook.
And he knows food. Yeah, we could sit and talk about stuff for hours. If we're not talking about breeding techniques, we're talking about like food, like you know, culinary techniques. Yeah, it's great. Good Love times. It. Yeah, he's definitely one of my favorite fish keepers. Anyways, but you're already in trouble there, so you're gonna have to.
I'm already fired.
You're gonna have to fix that one somehow.
So my favorite thing about working there is when I have like 5 minutes that I need to kill before something is filled, or when I have like 5 minutes of downtime or something. There is zero end to tanks to look into to see weird things or different things happening. To go look for babies, to go look for eggs, to go look for, you know, fish that are turned on or doing weird things, or like, that's the coolest part about it, is there's always something to look at.
Yeah.
What's the worst part about it? Probably, I don't know, I want to say the drive, because it's an hour away from where I live, so I have a 2-hour drive every day, 1 hour there, 1 hour back.
Oh wow, yeah, that is.
But I drive all the time anyway, so it doesn't really bother me. Worst part about it, I'm still nervous. Like, when you work around fish that are that expensive and that rare, and like him and Gary Lang are the only 2 people on the planet that have this fish in a tank, and I've got to put my hands in that tank, and I've got to do the maintenance on that tank. Like, that's nerve-wracking to somebody who is like, I wouldn't say a super noob in the hobby, but like, I'm not a rainbow fish aficionado. Like, I'm not into the collectoritis with the rainbow fish, and I've got Gary Lang breathing down my neck. I can hear him in the back of my head every day going, don't mix those rainbows. Don't mix them. Like, Lucas will have me move a fish, and I swear, I'm so afraid that like I'm gonna put it in the wrong spot, and he's gonna call Gary Lang, and Gary Lang's gonna come over and beat me with a stick, and like that's the most nerve-wracking part of it. Is I've got to uphold the quality of like fish legends. Like,
yeah. So my question too,
nerve-wracking.
I was wondering, were you? I know Lucas did a fish room tour of John Keller's fish room. Is it John Keller?
Stoller?
No, that's not
John
what I.
Stoller. He did. He's done like 3 or 4 fish room
Killifish.
tours in the last couple of.
It was
the
the
Killifish
Killifish
guy.
That
No,
was
I didn't
John
get to
Keller, I believe. And
John
there
Keller, yeah.
And he was, and Gary Lang was there in the fish room too. I'm like, and he didn't even like introduce himself. He didn't say anything about the fact that Gary. Maybe in the very beginning. I missed that part.
Gary Lang in the background.
But I'm like seeing Gary Lang in the background. I'm just
low
like,
key.
what the fuck is he doing? What is he? There I go cussing. That's what I owe a
There
dollar.
you go.
Yeah.
See, I do it.
Oh
it wasn't
boy.
me.
Right? No, it's like,
Yeah,
what
just
is
low-key
he
in
doing
the
there? Yeah,
background
he's just hanging
out.
out. They're talking. I'm just like, wait a minute, that's Gary Lang.
He does a lot. Gary Lang does a lot of killifish stuff too, like a lot of pictures. He's like a super good fish photographer, like hardcore. They've got like this really cool. I don't know if you saw. I'm sure you've probably seen this. They have like this really cool tank that has like a panel in the front that keeps the fish up front and like sideways, so they can put the fish in the front part, take the picture of it so it looks all straight. I thought that was the coolest thing.
Well, that's kind of what we're doing in Peru. You just create it. The key is to create it's a special fish tank that you create by hand, and it's just so cool. Small and narrow that the fish want to stay sideways in the tank because it's only like an inch or two. It goes about an inch or two back, but anyways, but it keeps the fish straight. And then what we would do is you also put a little I have one here. I'm working on a project, and this is part of the project, which I can't reveal to anybody. I have a secret. I'm prototyping I'm prototyping something, but it's not exactly this thing that I'm talking about. But no, this is actually a tape measure. You can't see anything on it, but numbers and lines are on it and everything. It's just a little, but literally I take a little bit of water, and I can stick this to the glass of the aquarium, and then when you put the fish in there, the fish is forced to go long ways, and you can you can do a full, you can record all that information. You can get the length of the fish and everything while you're doing photography of it. But that's more more of a science tank.
Like collecting, like they have them in the boxes that keep them straight so that they can measure them and do all that kind of stuff. But I thought it was interesting, like we're always trying to get like the perfect shot of this fish, and I hope this fish poses so that I can get like the magazine picture. It's like they're not taking pictures of fish just running around in tanks. They have them in a specialized tank that has them pushed to the front. The backdrop is all planted, and that's how they get that shot, that amazing shot.
Oh, right. For his
or
kind
like
of photography.
The bubbling plants, they pour in the carbonated water so that the plants all look like they're purling. Like a lot of this stuff where you see it's like, oh, that's the fish tank I want because it's so perfect. That fish tank is just been cleaned and just been set up to look just like that. Like nature is much
the
more.
Pictures that you see
on the floor.
Yeah. Like the stuff that you see them doing for, like, he's got some posters. I know Gary Lang has got a rainbow fish poster and stuff like that that he's doing. But yeah,
those poster pictures are set up. Like.
I've got a thing for the killifish, and I had to watch that whole tour because John Keller he's got like the largest collection of killifish anywhere. That he's breeding pairs of fish, and it's just awesome to see tank after tank after tank after tank of different species of killifish, but just how he set up the tank, and it's really not. Some of them are a little bit more difficult than others, but it was just really cool. It was really.
That's how I felt about the tour he did, the one he just put out of the guy that does all the cory cats. That he's got like 100 and some odd species of cory cats in there. It's just amazing. It's like tank after tank after tank of just crazy looking cory cats. Awesome. He put that one out today. I forget who was that. I don't remember.
Well, so if there was, what's your dream tank? That's a classic. It's okay. Sorry, Dan. I had it wrong. Yeah, it's not Keller. It's Heller. I knew it was kind of. I know he's got the same name as like a famous musician. I believe it's also a Jack Heller, a musician. But yeah, Jack Heller. Yeah, killifish legend, definitely. Yeah, he's got some
For sure.
stuff I wanted, like, oh, I couldn't. I want to be in that fish room.
Jealous.
That's like one of my. If someone asked me like, what fish room would you want to go to, I'd like to. That's on the top of the list right there. Just because, there's just something about. There's two fish that groups of fish that like are my favorite. It's killifish and betta fish. I must say they're my favorite, but they just intrigue me to death. And it's just the fact that they live in little pools of water in the middle of like just a puddle of water in the middle of the jungle. And I don't know, but
Awesome.
part of it too is to recreate that environment. And you know, it's not a tank. There's not any plants in the tank unless you know, like there's just not any plants in the tank.
I think if I could visit any fish room, it would probably be Dean's fish room because I feel like he's got the OCD thing on lock. Like his fish room looks like the most streamlined OCD.
Oh, I'd be taking notes if I went to his fish room. I'd be taking notes. Yeah, he's definitely OCD though. I mean, he literally like he tightens up his fish room. He's got that rule of his. I think he gives himself. You know, he puts in like a certain amount of time every day to just tightening up the fish room, just keeping everything in order.
Lucas has OCD really bad. I have OCD really bad. So that whole OCD fish room, I love his fish room. If I could make mine look like that sterile, clean, perfect environment he's got, amazing.
Yeah. Well, it makes everything easier down the line too. I know that I get into problems where I can be bad sometimes, and you're like looking for something, or I'm trying to like do something, and then I go to sit something down. Well, I set it down on something else, and I've already got a pile, and now we have an avalanche occurring over here in the corner because I did that, and whatever. And then I go to grab something, and it's underneath this whatever. It's just piles of a mess, and it happens really quick. It happens really quick when you know. You
start piling stuff up. I get it. That's why I don't have a lot of tables in my house, because I feel like when you put a table in your house, all you're really doing is creating a place where a pile of junk is going to end up that you don't know what's underneath it. And tables, I have a table right here. It's full of junk, and it drives me nuts. Like everything else must be cleaned because the OCD is for real.
Well, I'm over the hour just a little bit. I was just trying to scroll through the chat a little bit and see if there was any other crazy
I think
questions.
Amber's going live after this, isn't she?
Oh yeah, definitely. She's going live like right now. That's why I didn't want to go too long over that. Yesterday she went in a little bit longer, and I didn't waited. Anyways, blah 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 blah. Yeah, this week she's definitely going like right now, like 8 minutes ago. So she might actually be live right now, or she's hanging out in here for a second. But I don't want to I don't want to mess with that. So definitely, yeah, she was definitely just saying something in here. She's kind of waiting for me, and she shouldn't. She should rock and roll her thing.
Yeah, she needs to go. She's not started yet, so yeah.
Yeah, I should go ahead and get out of here. But it was really cool hanging out with you and chatting with you. I'm definitely jealous of your job, and I'm sure you get to learn a lot of cool stuff and get to see all the different techniques and things like that. I love it. Yeah, and then you get to bring fish home too. That's another plus probably.
Yeah, I stole those guppies.
It doesn't help the multi-tank addiction.
Well, right now I'm trying not to bring anything back because it's like I'm trying to do the basement and I don't want to have to move more stuff. And he's always like, "Do you want some of those?" And I'm like, "Yes, but no."
Well, Amber says no, keep it going. But it's the end of the hour, and I should go ahead.
It's your turn, Amber.
It's Amber's turn. Yeah, and if some of you out here in the chat don't know who Amber is from Big City Betas, she is a pretty awesome betta fish breeder. She's into a lot of other reptiles and snakes, stuff like that. But she's doing some really cool things with wild betta fish. She probably has one of the largest collection of breeding pairs of different wild species in the United States, at least for that matter. But she's full of information, and I like listening to her geek out, and sometimes she likes to rant about different things in the hobby, so that's always nice too. Anyways, I want to thank everybody in the chat for hanging out. I really do appreciate all of the support, everybody coming out on the Sunday afternoon. Yeah, and Hayley, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out and being random with me.
Yeah. But thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Go ahead and go check out Amber's stream, and we're going to get out of here. And what else would I like to say? Remember, keep your tanks clean, your fish fed, and have fun.